Okay, I think we're actually live right on time, 2 o'clock Pacific Central Time and noon Standard. Mark, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, perfect.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you holding up during this quarantine? Where are you, out there in Los Angeles?
Yep, out in Los Angeles, out in the valley, we're doing fine. Although we had some pretty serious temperatures last week, but it's cooled off now, and yeah, I just find myself at home, exercising at home, gardening, baking, eating
Baking?
a lot of good food. Oh yeah, I'm a hell of a baker.
Oh, really? See, we're breaking news already. Mark Rolston, tough guy, TV tough guy, is a great baker.
For real, yeah. I made my wife a lemon tart yesterday.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe we can get you to post the recipe to the Mark Rolston lemon tart.
I'd be happy. It's a good one.
Again, thanks so much for doing this, Mark. I want to start. Now, you're not one of those guys like me that just goes out to LA to be an actor. Like, you put in the work. You went and trained in London, like super legitimate training. How did that process work for you growing up, and what made you decide that you wanted to pursue being an actor?
What's funny thing, my dad was a single parent of 3 kids, and when we were little, Saturdays was his day to like do all the catch up at home. So he told all of us, he's like, I don't care what you do, but all of you have to do something for the day, because I got to do the laundry and the cleaning and everything else. So you guys got to be out of here. So like my sister did ballet, my brother played the guitar, and I thought, I don't know, maybe I'll try, like a Saturday acting class. And I got a lot of response. In fact, I was asked to turn professional when I was like 10 at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., which is a very prestigious theater. And my father wouldn't let me. He said, you're not going to turn professional now. He said, you can do your Saturday classes, but you got to finish high school. And when you finish high school, if you really want to do it, well, then you can try. So I kind of gave it up because I was an athlete too. I played basketball. And, so it wasn't until high school, my senior year, that I had to get an easy grade. So for my English class, one of the requirements was to perform in a play. So I did the play, and then went off to college, and again thought, oh, I'll do Theater 101 and get an easy A, and I got cast in a lead. I played Bo Decker in William Inge's Bus Stop, which was Marilyn Monroe made famous in the movie. And I was bitten. And luckily, I mean, it's all serendipitous, right? Like a lot of times, like, and I'm happy to call it luck. But I was in the student union building, saw a little display saying, oh, study abroad in England. And I thought, oh, what's this about? Sent off for the prospectus, and they said, oh, yeah, you come here and you can go take classes at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And I'm thinking, wow, very cool. Of course, I got there, and there was nothing of the sort. It wasn't the Royal Academy. But what was interesting, I met up with a guy who was an established actor, and he directed us in some Chekhov one-acts, and then he became my mentor. And he was the person who said to me, he's like, what are you going to do when this semester's over? And I said, I don't know, I guess I'll go back to Maryland and get my degree. And he said flat out, he goes, no, you're not. He said, you're a real actor. You're going to stay in England. I'll tell you where you're going to go. And I auditioned everywhere. I got into every single school except for the Royal Academy. And but I ended up going to the place where my mentor, Anton Rogers, he said, you're going to go to this drama center place. And it was it was almost like a conservatory training. It was 3 solid years, 18 hours a day. You only got 3 weeks off in the summertime. And the people that trained me, I mean, it was a mixed bag. It was like we had Doreen Cannon, who was a protege of Uta Hagen's. She was our method acting teacher, and then they mixed it up with another training, which is very, very specific to the school. It was called movement psychology, that this guy, Yat Namgrim, developed with Rudolf Laban. I don't know if you know Laban notation. He was an interesting guy. He actually developed this notation for industrial workers, so they could follow this notation and do their factory work efficiently and safely. But my teacher, Yat Malmgren, he added a component of Jungian psychology to the notation, and he then taught it to actors. So it's something that, you know, there's only maybe now, after my drama school actually closed last year, really sad. Like, I think they were up to like year 48. They've almost been in business 50 years. But so there's maybe 800, 900 people in the world that know this particular movement psychology. But it's fascinating. It's well beyond what a regular method acting training might be. But and it's not something you can easily teach, because you have to have people that are going to be committed for a length of time to actually delve into this particular study. But it was a really well-rounded course, and I think that kind of set me up for success, because, in fact, the biggest compliment of all, when I was auditioning for Shawshank Redemption, Nikki Marvin, who was a British producer, I'm there in my first audition with them, and she turns to me and she says, "You trained in England, didn't you?"
Wow.
I was like, "How the hell could you know that?" And she goes, "Well, did you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she goes, "Yeah, well, I can tell." So it's a theater basis, you know, like we all started doing theater. And I think you have to know the theater, because that's the one medium where you can't cheat. Like, you know, you can't do another take.
Sure.
You're on the whole time. So I think that set me up for a degree of success.
Cool. And let me remind people that are watching, if you share this video, we're going to have a drawing to win $50 if you share this interview right now. And also, if you have a question, leave it in the comments. And I'm going to have somebody bring me those questions during the interview, and we'll ask Mark those as we progress.
Cool.
So from a kid and you grew up in Baltimore, I think you said, now you're on the stage in London, where probably the best, most talented actors are in the world. Were you able to look around? Did you know you were talented? Did you know you had the goods? Did you foresee the kind of career that you had in advance at that time?
Well, it's funny. I'm getting some feedback. Is that a problem? Okay, it went away.
Okay, great.
So when I was a kid, and I'm sure you experienced this too, it's like, you know, my mother's side of the family was very big. Like, you know, she was one of 17 kids. And so all the uncles were always saying, "So Mark, what are you going to be when you grow up?" And, you know, initially, like, "I'm going to be a fireman, you know, I'm going to be a policeman." And then finally one day, when I was very young, I was like 8 years old, you know, my dad only let us watch so much TV a week. You got 2 hours a week, and you could pick any time, but that was it. And I always picked Saturday morning cartoons and kids movies. And this will date me, but I used to watch the Bowery Boy comedy movies on Saturday mornings. And that's what really spurred me on to wanting to be an actor. In fact, one day I ran downstairs to my dad's office and said, "Pop, I know what I want to be. I know what I want to be." And he was like, "Yeah, what is it, son?" And I was like, "I'm going to be a movie actor." And my father nearly fell out of his office chair. He was laughing so hard. He was like, "Oh my God." He goes, "Really? That's what you're going to do?" He said, "Well, you know what? We'll see." He said, "It could be a tough road to hoe, but just finish your high schooling first." And but he did say to me, he said, when I turned 18 and I was very serious, I was going to go off to the drama center. He said, "Well, you know, son," he goes, "I hope it works out for you." He said, because if it doesn't, he said, at the very least, you'll make a really good salesman. And truth be told, is like in amongst like a lot of my successes, and I've had 3 children, so I've actually had to use those sales skills. I have sold kitchens, I have sold solar panels, I've sold windows, I've sold coating. And I've had to remind my father, is like, Dad, remember, how prophetic it was at 88 years old to say I was going to be a movie actor, and I became a movie actor. But also what you said to me is like, at least I'll have some sales skills. And that was true too.
Well, that's quite a long way to travel to learn how to be a salesman. Go over to London to learn how to sell kitchen supplies. And I had the same. When I told my family I was going to be an actor, they just kicked me out of the family and still won't return my calls. But I'm joking. They're great. But so when you got your first big movie role, and I don't know if that was Aliens or if that came earlier, did you get that recognition from your family? Like, look, Dad, I really did it. Because that's the biggest stages you could have.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest support my father gave me when I was 18, he said, and it was really true. He said, Mark, it's probably not a bad idea, because as technology moves along, more and more people are going to be out of work. A lot of people are going to be too stupid to do anything else than like sit on their couch and watch the TV. So they might as well watch you. So that to me was great. The fact that my father didn't I actually was very frightened, because my dad was former military, worked at IBM. I didn't get any of his math genes at all. Like my brother and sister are super smart, and they went right over my head. But the thing is like I felt very, very, very supported by my dad. And, early on, and I'm sure you experienced the same thing, is like, you get feedback from people. They're like, hey, you were really good, or you were really funny, or God, I like that thing you did. And that's the thing that kind of spurs you on, right, initially. Because everyone likes to be recognized for something they did well. But truth be told is my first movie ever was a movie called Daryl, Dayrl. And I got a part in the movie. It was one of my first auditions ever. And I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm in this movie, Daryl. Like, you got to watch it when it comes out. And, it made the theaters. And my father called me up back then, because before the days of email. And he was like, damn, Mark, next time you get a movie part, let me know that you're really in the movie for a while, because goddamn, he said, I watched that movie for almost 2 hours, and I practically missed you. You were only there for 10 seconds. And then I got into a mini series. I can't recall the name of it right now, but the mini series was an 8-hour mini series, and I think I was in the last 20 minutes. And my father was actually really upset. He said, don't do that again. He said, don't make me watch 8 hours or something just to sleep for 5-10 minutes. So,
yeah.
But then, as you go along, I've been really, really fortunate. I've been in some tremendous films, some fantastic writing and great directors and great fellow actors. And that's the luck part of it. You can't, going into this, you can't expect to have anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
I used to love the James Mason, the great actor. He had a quote where he was asked for his advice, and he said, well, the best advice I can give you is never expect anything. Don't expect a script. Don't expect to have a trailer to walk into when you arrive on the set. Don't expect that they're going to pay you even. I mean, it's like the list goes on and on and on. And it's actually true, for us as actors. You can't go in having expectations, because quite often they get dashed. Suddenly there's a point in your career where people tell you no. And if you can't handle no, don't get into this business.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that's great advice. And we'll circle back to some of your iconic projects. Can't wait to get into those. But I want to ask you first, did going to school in London and learning your craft there from the best, are you a good auditioner? Did that give you a good confidence to go? Because basically you audition for a living. I mean, that's where you're really making your money. And did that pay off for you in that sense? Because I was never really a great auditioner, but did having that background really help you in that arena?
Well, it really did, primarily because when I will go into a room, like I'm always confident of my acting. What I wasn't good at was the schmoozing part.
Mhm.
Because early on in my career, like, you know, I'm still a reasonably intense person, but when I was young, like I was wired pretty tight. And I'm sure I put some people off, you know, because I wasn't the kind of warm and fuzzy, like, hey, how are you? And, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And like, I really wasn't it. Like, whenever casting people would ask me, like, do you have any questions? I'd be like, nope. I said, can I show you what I got?
Mhm.
And usually the acting would win me over. It won me a ton of jobs. But I often think back and think, you know what, I kind of shortchanged myself because you have to have a little bit of both. Like, you have to be personable, you have to be enthusiastic. And I often think if I wasn't so intense, that maybe some people would have warmed up to me a bit more. And then just to bring this idea forward, like to the present day, and it's been happening like the last 8-10 years, you don't get to audition anymore. You can't get in the room. So people, it's like what we're doing now. Like, you know, you and I have met, but let's say we never met. You couldn't really gauge who I am as a person, like the warmth of my personality, or me, you, via this medium. And now we're forced to like do self-tapes, and it's great. I mean, I can always handle myself within a frame, okay? But it's that other human part where people would say, you know what, God, we know he's a good actor, but I think I can hang out with this guy for the 3 months when we do a movie. And conversely, like some people will meet you and they'll go, oh, I don't think I can hang around with him. So it's a whole mixed bag, but definitely my training set me up. I know how to interpret a writer's words and lay down a great character, and most importantly is being believable in it, because you know people talk about getting typecast. Well, after I did Shawshank Redemption, I was typecast for a long while. People are like, oh no, that guy can't be funny. He's a rapist, murderer. So but we all encounter those obstacles. But I do think, just to answer the question, my training helped me with a firm grounding in my craft. And it is a craft. It's something that it's a never-ending craft. Because even as you get older, every time you get some new words, like that's my responsibility, is to interpret those words and to make them believable, and to make the words, the words jump off the page at me, and then I have to interpret and make it jump off the screen.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I really admire about you is with your body of work. I mean, you could go do dozens of autograph shows and really, get more money or whatever, fly out on the weekends or have a publicist and get a bunch of magazine covers. But it seems like you it's all about the craft for you, which I really admire, because with your body of work and how effective you are as an actor, you could really milk it to death, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have a real passion for developing character. I am one of those kind of method people. It's like I've done crazy shit. I've shaved my head entirely. A few, like 4 or 5 years ago, I played Clive Davis in a A&E production of it was called Whitney, about Whitney Houston. And yeah, I met I got the job, and then about 10 days before we were starting, I called up the production. I said, can I hear from makeup and hair? Because I don't have a lot of hair, but I got some hair. But Clive Davis had a distinct hairstyle. I said, so I go to see this amazing guy, Emmanuel Millar, his name. He did like all of Tarantino's movies, and he's done everything. But he goes, yeah, hey, don't worry, I got you all sorted out. I pulled the wig that I used in Kill Bill, and hopefully it's going to fit you perfectly. It's to come in this particular day. I go and I sit down. This wig fit me so well. It was like an $8,000 wig. with the fold over hair, right?
Jeez, yeah.
And he only had to put 2 little dots of glue because the thing fit me like it was made for. And then when he took it off, he said, now, do you want this to look perfect? I said, absolutely. I said, I'm here to do, I'm going to become Clive Davis. He said, well, then you have to shave your head. I was like, take it off. Take it off. And then he shaved me down. We also had to pluck my eyebrows because Davis almost has no eyebrow. And I'm driving home thinking, I'm like thinking, this is going to be awesome. Driving home, I thought, you know what? Maybe I should call my wife, because if I land at my front door looking like a convict, she almost scare the shit out of her. But yeah, but I have no problem. I commit myself completely to what we call, where I was trained, it's called transformation. Can you transform yourself? Can you become so immersed in the character that people don't even recognize it? And I've managed to do that a number of times, and that's the beauty of film and TV, especially film, is like you're kind of immortalized, just by the nature of what it is. But of course, you get older, and you're going to be I was thinking today when I was walking my dog, how our good friend, Brian Krause, very fine actor, and he's a lot younger than me, so he's still out there with the roles where, yeah, man, rock him and sock him, and I'm going to be a handsome buff dude, right? And I was thinking this morning, it's like, I'm still very fit, but the days of me running around, tackling people, and doing stunts is over. They ain't doing that no more.
Well, I don't know. I think you still have a few years in you, but that's your choice. And you've kind of been known as a tough guy, in the films you've done, and the bad guy. And here you are making your wife lemon tarts on Mother's Day. So the dichotomy of that is great.
That's a survival technique, man.
What's that?
Making the lemon tart is a survival technique.
Well, I've been divorced for 20 years, so I'm gonna have to study at your feet, in a lot of arenas. So is that ever frustrating? Because with your background, I'm confident you could do, and you have done, comedy, nice guys, but you're known for tough guy roles. Is that frustrating for you at any time?
Nah, actually, like being the bad guy is a lot more fun than actually being the hero, because the heroes, they do get to kiss the girls, but it's kind of a thankless job. It's because you're always being good all the time. I mean, it's fun being bad.
Yeah.
Because in real life, you can't go do that, otherwise you land in jail.
Yeah.
But I just love the process of just, the bottom line is creating a believable character, no matter what it is. Comedy, no matter what. It's like when the words come off your lips, you have to have that essence of believability. And I think the person who or the time that I really did my best was my Shawshank audition. It was my first audition ever where I just talked. I didn't lay anything on it. I wasn't even trying to be a character. I just kind of lost myself in it. But I remember after I came out of that audition, I was like, that's it. That's the key, just talking. And then when I got to meet Morgan Freeman on the set, Morgan kind of backed that up for me. He was like, because Morgan used to stop Tim Robbins. Mm-hmm. And like in the middle of a take, Morgan would go, no, Tim, stop. Tim's like, what? He was like, man, cut the movie star shit out.
Wow.
Just talk to me. Just talk. He did that on set to Tim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
that's been the essence of what I do. Like whenever I approach anything now, because you can feel it as an actor. You know when you're being truthful, mm-hmm. and you know when you're not.
Yeah.
So I always go for that little soft spot, and the soft spot is really just being grounded enough that you can just talk.
Yeah. Well, that's so fascinating, and Shawshank is such an iconic movie, and we'll get back to more of that. But for Morgan to intervene like that, because Morgan wasn't that great. I mean, he wasn't the star then that he is now. For him to intervene and say to Tim Robbins, cut the crap, that's pretty ballsy at that time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you have to know Morgan. I mean, Morgan is a tremendous individual. I mean, he's so generous, so professional. The story that was, told and is true. I wasn't there, but I learned of it from the producer. The scene when the guys are in the roof and they're all having a beer.
Yeah.
Well, it was only 2 days for that scene, and they were shooting. The first day, they got all of Morgan's stuff. And apparently, in Morgan's contract, he only had the 1 day because he had written into his contract he had like a 5-day break in the middle of the shoot. So he was going to go off to the Virgin Islands where he keeps a house and keeps a sailboat. He was going to go sailing for a few days to decompress. And they didn't quite get all the scene done that 1 day, and they had to call the other guys back in the next morning super early. And sure enough, it's like 6 a.m. The other guys are up on the roof, and Morgan was there. And the producer says, Morgan, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be on a flight to the Virgin Islands. He said, don't worry, I canceled that. I'm on a later flight. He said, well, what are you doing? He goes, I'm here for the other guys. They gave me a whole day. I was off. They were off camera for me, and I'm gonna be here off camera for them. And when I heard that, I was like, that's the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah. For Shawshank, what was the casting process like for Shawshank? Was it how exhausting was it? Did you have to go back 5, 6, 7 times? Were they already familiar with your work when you got the part? And kind of walk us through that.
Well, that's a fun one. First of all, just to say, in those days, you'd always get a script. Quite often these days, it's hard to even get the full script out of people's hands. So, which is a fallacy, because how can you judge what a character is if you don't know the whole story, the arc of the story?
Mm-hmm.
That aside, I'd seen the entire script, and I can tell you, it's like when I read Aliens, when I read Shawshank Redemption, when I read The Departed, your eyes light up. The words fly off. They fly off the page at you. Like you're visualizing everything. So I went into the Shawshank audition knowing what a fabulous script this was. Now the funny part is I went into Castle Rock, and I was having some rough times. My second marriage was going bust. And I go in, and I'm sitting in the office, and Deborah Aquila, the fabulous casting director, she had me into her office, and she was like, so what part would you like to read for? Well, I really wanted to read for Hadley, which was Clancy Brown's part. And she said, are you sure? I said, oh God, yeah. I mean, I could knock the hell out of this one. And she was like, I think you should read Boggs. And I was like, yeah, but I really want. And she was like, no, I think you should read Boggs. And she said it in such a way, I was like, okay, I get your message. Got your message. So the day I came back to read, I'm sitting in the lobby, and there's a long hallway down to the right. And just sitting there like we do, waiting. And this guy keeps coming out like from the side of it. He comes out from the door. He's like, and he goes out the other side. Then he comes back, and he's like looking down the hall, and he's disappearing again. I'm wondering, what's this person? Anyway, so I finally get called into the room, and the person going back and forth was Frank Darabont, the writer-director. And he was like, man, I just got to say, just before we get into it, like, you're Drake. You're Drake from Aliens. And I was like, wow, yeah. He was an Aliens fan. huge fan. So from his perspective, like, yeah, he knew of my work, but I was Drake.
Yeah.
For him. And then of course, we went into the meeting, and like I said to you, like it was probably one of the best auditions I'd ever done, because I was just being real, and didn't have to go in again, but it took 3 months to get that offer. So imagine, this is what actors go through, people don't realize. There I was, I probably did the best audition of my life to that point. Didn't hear shit, nothing. And I'm thinking, I didn't get that one. God, and here I'm going through a divorce. I'd moved out of my house. I'm in a fucking apartment that, I didn't even like. And one morning, I've always managed to keep myself pretty sane, because I exercise daily, right? Just because for my mental stability. And I'm getting ready to go out for a run. I get a phone call at my apartment, and it's Frank Darabont, the writer-director, calling me personally to tell me I got the role. And he kind of said, look, sorry it took so long. He told the story, and I'll share it with you if you like.
Thank you.
He said, sorry it took so long to get back to you, but the guys at Castle Rock didn't really want you. I was like, oh. He said, yeah, they made me go to New York and audition everybody because Rob Reiner didn't want you in the movie. I was like, wow. Well, I said, how did it come about? He said, well, I had to go to New York. I auditioned hundreds and hundreds of people. And he said, I'm not going to name any names, but he said, you beat out some big, big people. He said what happened was that the way their whole casting process worked was they, aside from Tim and Morgan, who obviously offered out, but anybody who had to audition, they compiled the top 5 choices on video. And then one day, Rob Reiner and Alan Horn and all the Castle Rock people and Frank sat in a little theater and watched the audition. Well, because Reiner had been so adamant about don't want this guy here, there are only 5 auditions per character. So what Frank did was he went and told the projectionist, hey, on this particular role, slip this audition in at the end. So they watched the 5, they slipped me in at the end, and apparently, according to Frank, I'm on this phone call with him, he said, and when your audition finished, I stood up and I turned around to Rob Reiner and said, and if you don't think that's the guy to play Boggs Diamond, you're a dumb motherfucker. and apparently Reiner was like, all right. Yeah, we'll use the guy. But the interesting thing is, do you know what the original choices that Rob Reiner had for?
Who's that?
He wanted Tom Cruise to play Andy Dufresne, and oh my God, I'm blanking. Popeye Doyle, great actor.
Oh,
come on. French Connection, come on. All right, come on, somebody out in the world there. French Connection. Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman, okay.
Now Gene Hackman as Red was a solid choice, right? Mm-hmm. But when you think of just the juxtaposition of Tim and Morgan, it's so perfect. And that one line where Andy Dufresne asks Red, what's his name? And Morgan says, I'm Irish. It's so brilliant. Yeah. So
wow.
that was my Shawshank story. But I wouldn't have called that exhausting. Which was exhausting was my audition for The Departed. Okay. I went back 5 times.
And we'll get back to that. I want to still talk about Shawshank some more in that process. But you touched on something that a lot of people that aren't actors or in the industry don't get. Sometimes you get the dream role and you have to go through so much to get the audition and to get seen in the room. and then you go back 5, 6, 8 times, and it's exhausting, and it sucks some of the joy out from even getting the part, and which is super frustrating for me on my level. And I don't know if you still run into that, or if you even have to audition for all your stuff, but some of the hoops you have to jump through are exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I went through that on Departed. That was very, very, very difficult. But amazing too, exhilarating. In fact, I'm going to talk about Departed, but
let's go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, just because it was like, I went in, I go in. You never met Scorsese. You only went in with the casting people, and they tape you, and then you get some notes, and you had to retape, and then you get some notes, and you had to go retape. And after the third time, I know what you mean. It is frustrating. It's like, fuck, am I going to get this thing or not? Like, what the hell's going on? Mm-hmm. Well, the fifth time was finally, you're going to go to Beverly Hills Hotel and you're meeting Martin Scorsese in one of the private bungalows. So by that time, it's like, okay, I'm getting close. Like, this is exhausting, but I must be getting close.
Yeah.
So the funny part of it is, I'm like in such a zone. Like, I am so focused. I drive all the way to the Beverly Hills Hotel. And when I get there, I'm looking at my gas gauge and I'm almost out of gas. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? I'm never going to be able to drive home. And of course, you're up on the Beverly Hills, up on the bungalows. It's up the hill.
Yeah.
So I pull in. And I say to the valet parking guy, I said, dude, can you please do me a favor? I said, I'm going to be an hour or so here. Here's $40, and there's 40 for you. Can you please take my car and fill it with gas? And that's for you. I'll be right back. Please, you'd be saving my life. Because I had to get to another meeting afterward. So you come in and you're waiting at the bungalows, right? Mm-hmm. And Anthony, I want to say, he's in the TV show Blackish. Anthony Andrews.
I think I know who you're talking about. Anthony Anderson?
Anthony Anderson.
Okay.
So he's there. We're chit-chatting and stuff, and we're in this little garden sort of patio. And then you get called up. He got called up before me, and afterwards he came down with a smile on his face, and he was like, hey, man, nice to meet you. And you're kind of like, you're scared. I mean, you're going to meet Martin Scorsese in person. Mm-hmm. So you go up this stairway, you hit this doorway, and boom, door opens, and there's Martin Scorsese. Dressed impeccably. Oh, my God. Like cufflinks. Like, Gucci, everything. Just with the glasses, and dressed to the nines.
Yeah.
And we come in and he goes, hey, Mark, please come and sit down, and I'm going to sit over here. Well, when he sat down, Marty's not very tall. Mm-hmm. So when he sat down and his feet were like this far off the floor. and I almost lost it. I almost laughed. And I tell you, I bit the inside of my tongue, my cheek, so hard, because I was like, you dumb motherfucker, don't you laugh now. Don't laugh. I'm like there. And then you had to go through every single word. It didn't matter. Even if you said the no in a scene, you had to say that. I never had an audition like that where you literally said every single line. And afterward, like Scorsese, he's very, very warm and generous. He thanked me, and I was like, hey, thank you. It's so great, to meet you. And went away thinking, yeah, I did good, but who the hell knows? Mm-hmm. Well, half an hour later, I get a call from my agent. You got the role. I was like, wow, okay. And I had another meeting to go to. And because I got the role, I called my agent. I said, blow off that other meeting. I'm not going to do anything else. He said, I called my wife up and I said, hey, I'm on my way home. And there's that bottle of champagne on my rack there. Put it in the freezer because we're going to drink champagne. I got The Departed. And she was like, oh my God. because that script, that was a crazy, when I was first reading that script, you get to a point in that script, and it was a page turner, but there's one point in the script, and it really revolved around my character, when suddenly somebody's dying every page. It's unbelievable. And this movie so I remember I was reading the script, and every time I turned the page, I go, oh my God. And my wife was sitting next to me on the couch. She's like, what are you oh my Godding about? I said, you're not going to believe this. It's like somebody dies every page at the end of this film, and they kill the hero. I mean, what script do you know where you like that's normally a kiss of death. Like you don't kill your hero. And that's one of the things I think made Departed, such a great film. Bill Monahan, what a phenomenal writer, man. And Scorsese, what an amazing director. Some of the best times were just being on set with him, watching him do his thing, and because he keeps the same team, like his crew, they're always the same. So it runs like a machine, but it's that fascinating. Just fascinating.
Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorites. And for people that are watching that aren't industry buffs, I mean, he did Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, and just one of the most iconic directors of all time. And what was he? How did he meet up to your expectations of working for a legend like Scorsese, as opposed to getting there and being around him day to day? How did that match up for you?
Impeccably. He's an impeccable dude, and when you're on a set with him, there's a hierarchy as to how the day goes and how you come to the set. So it's like, crew gets on there, then your background, then they'll call, the character actors in, then Leo would come, then Jack Nicholson would come, and Marty is the last person to hit the set. And this is apparently an unwritten rule, but it was incumbent upon his first AD, Joe Reedy, to make sure it was such. If Marty wasn't able to walk onto the set, take in the surrounds, and call action, he'd walk away. Yeah, he couldn't. He didn't walk on a set and then waited around. Because Marty, when he's not on the set, he's in an editing truck, editing something else, or even a previous day's work. He's an Energizer bunny, man. It's absolutely amazing. The guy has unlimited energy. Mm-hmm. But being on the set like that is just amazing, because we're all like that was made on film, and Michael Bauhaus was the director of photography, famous German cinematographer, who passed a year and a half ago, I believe. He would light for 4 hours. Lighting. Yeah. It wasn't until that was all done, he'd bring the actors on stage, and we would film for maybe 90 minutes, and then it was over. So, like when I came to do my death scene in Departed, that was an amazing, amazing day, man. Wow. We actually shot for much longer, and they even shot 10 hours of film, or 10,000 feet of film, beg your pardon. And at the end of the day, Joe Reedy comes up and he goes, "Hey, Mark, Marty's really, really happy." Because Marty can't be inside because of all the fake smoke. Mm-hmm. It affects his lungs. I guess he was a smoker, but he can't be around it anymore. He has to be on oxygen. But Joe Reedy comes in and goes, "Hey, Mark, Marty's really happy. Is there anything else you want to do?" Because he said, if you want to do another take, do anything else. And that was one of the moments where a lot of actors might go, hang on one second, sorry.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Take your time.
Sorry.
It's okay. And in addition to that, one thing I would like to follow up while we're on The Departed, and you talked about shooting on film. And for people that aren't aware, like film has gone by the wayside in the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years. And now everything is digital, which is much cheaper and a lot less trouble, but doesn't, to my opinion, look quite as good as film. So when you do such a film like The Departed on film, that's quite a commitment. So anyway, you can pick up where you left off, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So basically, so it was one of those moments where an actor might go, yeah, let me try. I'm gonna try something else. But here you are. You're with Martin Scorsese. You're doing a scene with Leonardo DiCaprio, who's amazing, amazing dude, really cool guy, great to work with. And I said to myself, I said to Joe Reed, I said, so Marty's happy, right? He's very happy. I went, I am too.
I'd put that on my tombstone. I made Martin Scorsese happy.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you could have been a real dick and go, yeah, let me try something else. And everybody else been working all day. And unless you did something, like, phenomenal, they're going to think, oh, for fuck's sake, man, we just shot 10,000 feet of film. Like, it wasn't any different. So,
yeah.
So I actually humbled myself and just said, nah, if Marty's happy, I'm happy. So.
Yeah. Well, if you're watching it by some chance you haven't seen The Departed, it's a must watch. And again, if you share this interview, I'm gonna do a drawing for a $50 gift certificate. And if you have a question for Mark, ask in the comments, and we'll follow up to those. Now, on The Departed, like we've been talking about with Martin Scorsese, the director, and Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, and a host of others, was that an ego-driven set, or did they just not tolerate any of that?
No, not at all. Well, no, the only person that had an ego was Jack. And not badly. I mean, you have to remember, like, he was 74 years old at the time. He did amazing stuff, man. Albeit, like, he didn't really try and do a Boston accent, which was kind of weird. Even though, and he was born in Brookline, and I remember joking and saying, "Come on, Jack, I mean, you were born in Brookline. You can't do Boston accent." He's like, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." But Jack, he's a big persona and amazing guy. He's a guy's guy, real guy's guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that about him, and he was very, very generous and kind to me. But the rest of us. No, man, like there was no ego, anything. That's what I remember when I first heard the cast list. I thought, oh boy, this is either going to be great or it's going to be a stinker, because, if all these stars, I mean, major stars, I mean, Mark Wahlberg in the movie is fantastic. But if everyone didn't come with their A game, it could have been a clunker. Could well have been. But luckily, I mean, I think Marty, he commands that kind of attention and focus from all of us, and yeah, man, what a dream!
Yeah,
doing a Scorsese movie in Boston and New York City, it's like, oh man, that was like making it, right?
Yeah. Well, and thanks for sharing all those firsthand stories. I mean, that's great, and I know everybody watching appreciates it. Let's go back to much earlier in your career with Aliens. So that was what, I think 1986. And was that your first big Hollywood film? And how did that come about?
I was living in England at the time, and it wasn't my first big film. I had actually just come off of a film called Revolution with Al Pacino, which was a clunker. That was a real clunker. But it was directed by Hugh Hudson, who did Chariots of Fire. So that was my first real big movie. But yeah, Aliens was, again, the first time I read a screenplay where, my God, you just kept flipping that page. It just didn't stop. And Jim Cameron, didn't meet him initially. I met Gail Ann Hurd, his wife, who's
producer.
Mm-hmm. Incredible woman, lovely. But I remember I was first called in to meet her. And, I got the proverbial, so tell me what you've been up to. And I told the biggest lie. I made it sound like the role that I played in Revolution was the next biggest part to Al Pacino. And I swear to God, I don't know how I did it, but
You're an actor.
I told a yarn that went on for about 20 minutes. And obviously I was believable because next thing I know, oh, you're going in next to meet Cameron, which was great. And then I had to go back again to Pinewood Studios, where this is like one of the memories of my lifetime, where I come into the room and it was at the near soundstage, and the entire office, you know, Jim is a very fine artist, right? Like not stick figure, but really fine.
Right.
He had storyboarded the entire film in sequence all the way around the office.
Wow.
And I remember walking into that room going, this is amazing. And then Jim sits me down and he goes, well, you got the part. And he hands me the script. The newest shooting script. And that was an amazing experience, because so grateful to Jim. Like he liked my look, or he saw something in me. Again, back then, like I was doing a lot of martial arts, so I was very, very fit.
Mm-hmm.
He said, look, so we really want you to do this role, but there's a couple things you have to do. And I was like, what? He goes, well, you got to put on like 30 or 40 pounds of muscle. And at the time I was like 175, 180. And I 3 months prior to shooting, I went every day. They had a driver pick me up at like 4:30 in the morning, get out of the car, all dressed in just gym clothes. And immediately I had this guy who is a former SAS, like it's Special Forces in Britain, who would just run me for 5 miles. And I mean, like, not jogging, like I was running.
Yeah.
And then they worked me out all day, man. I was lifting and I was drinking this amino acid crap.
You were training to run from aliens.
Yeah, right. But they, you know, at lunchtime, I would go to the big dining hall at Pinewood Studios. And this amino acid I was drinking, like, made me super, super hungry. So I was eating, like, steak and eggs and potatoes and just, like, anything. Like, and I got big, man. I got up to 230 pounds.
Wow.
But I was ripped. I was ripped.
Yeah.
I had this guy training me, he was a farmer, actually, from up north in England. He was the guy who, you know, when the fork loader, the thing that Sigourney Weaver gets in, the big yellow robot contraption that she fights the Queen Alien in, the guy who trained me was situated directly behind Sigourney, so you could never see him. But this guy had muscles. Like, I'm telling you, his muscles were like this. And he was the thing that moved that thing around manually. It wasn't CGI. It was, this guy was in the thing. Incredible. Yeah, so he actually had me at one point. I was doing free flies with like 80-pound dumbbells.
Jeez.
Each hand, 80 pounds each hand.
Wow.
I was messed up. I was good.
All that just to get killed by brutally mauled by an alien.
Yeah.
So again, you mentioned it was before the CGI that we have today. Was that like a lot of puppetry that went into those aliens, or how did they pull off such massive special effects, you know, going back 35 years to the mid 80s?
Well, amazing. Of course, the great Stan Winston, you know, was the special effects director, and he, not only a phenomenal artist, but, you know, Academy Award-winning artist and an amazing guy. They had a lot of miniature sets. They had the crew at Pinewood Studios who, amazing, one day they took an entire sound stage that was one thing, and in 4 days they changed it to the moonscape where we land the APC. And it's phenomenal. Like, even on film, it's a painted backdrop, but you would never know. The artistry that went into that is phenomenal. But you're right. The budget on that movie was only $18 million.
Wow.
As you know, that's nothing in big time action filmmaking. And in actual fact, Jim Cameron and Gale Ann Hurd were on the hook for any overages. So the pressure on them was to get it done and efficiently without them having to go into debt themselves. So they used when you see that film, it is amazing because to this day, 40 years later, almost, right? Or almost 40 years, it holds up. And I mean, not in a little way. That movie is seamless. And the lighting, just the simple effects, like the alien creatures were dancers and gymnasts who were in these alien costumes, but had moved in such a way you believed that they were a creature. Now, the queen alien was the most phenomenal thing, because when she makes her grand entrance at the end of the movie, and she's this massive, like 2-story tall bitch, to quote Sigourney's line. I went to the set that day just to watch it. Dude, they had guys, so imagine the queen alien's arm had a wire over a pulley to a couple of guys who had like bars, and they would manipulate the movement of the arm manually with wires that were then taken out, or sometimes didn't even need to be, because the way that Jim shot it, you never even saw the wire. Plus, they had a guy, he was one of the smallest special effects guys in their crew. That day, his only job was to be in the queen alien head, because it was massive. He had to hunker down inside there, and his only job was to take this goop, this clear goop, and to shove it out between the alien's teeth so it would drip down as she was coming out. But it was puppetry at an extraordinary level, and it was kind of like watching kabuki theater, you know, the Japanese theater where there's an actor who they have a person all in black who follows them and who drapes their clothing in a different way, because in that form of theater, the way that the costume was draped meant something. So it was kind of like that. It was fascinating. It was the most fun because, you know, for a young actor, you know, going to a set and playing soldier all day was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for a young man playing with guns and killing aliens, that's every boy's dream right there.
There you go. There you go.
Now, James Cameron, again, another one of my favorites. I mean, for those that are watching, he did Titanic, the Avatar movies, and a host of other things. Was he the James Cameron? Yeah, thank you. How was he to work for at that time, young in his career?
Amazing. I mean, Jim, you know, there's so many bad rumors out there, like he's a megalomaniac. But the truth is much the way we discussed before of how, like, for an actor, like if you have a foundation in your training, you're going to be better served. Well, Jim came up in the Roger Corman studio. So Jim knew every single job. He did them. You know, and that's where he met Bill Paxton. Paxton was on his Jim was being an art director on a film, and Paxton came in looking for a job, and Jim was like, "Can you paint?" And Bill was like, yeah. And he was like, "Here, take a brush, go paint that wall." You know, Jim is brilliant. He's an absolute genius, and more of a technical genius, I would say. He's not necessarily the greatest actor's director, but he's a real filmmaker, man, and he's got tremendous energy and intellect, and you know, getting Aliens was a big turning point, because for me, I was living in England. I always knew in the back of my mind, if I was ever going to come to Hollywood, it had to be on the heels of a big movie. And I knew that Aliens was a big film, but I didn't really have a grasp of, like, in Hollywood terms, how big it was. And thanks to Bill Paxton, God bless his soul, you know, it was because of Bill that I came to Hollywood. Because Bill, he was relentless, man. He called me every week. He was like, Mark, dude, are you coming? Are you gonna? It's gonna be huge, man. I'm telling you, Mark, don't miss it. You can't miss it. And I was like, I don't know, Bill. You know, my son's really young, and I don't know. You know, and then finally I was like, all right, Paxton, I booked my ticket. I'm coming. And I never went back. You know, within 5 days of being here, I was starring in another movie with Lance Henriksen. So, Sarah, it's all luck. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why Bill. If Bill had never harassed me about coming over, maybe I wouldn't have come, because I was working as an actor in England anyway.
Yeah.
But it kind of fulfilled, you know, my own self-uttered prophecy when I was 8 years old, when I said to my dad, I'm going to be a film actor. And such an outlandish proclamation like came true. And wow, like what a start to get then with a movie like Alien, because it's like, I'm lucky in the respect that I've done classic films in almost every genre. You know?
Yeah. And you know, you brought up Bill Paxton. I think he's a fellow Texas boy, and you know, I first saw him in Weird Science when I was a kid, and just had such a great career, and was taken from us too soon. And you know, what was your talk about Bill just a little bit in your relationship with him, just because I'm such a fan of Bill Paxton.
Man, sweetest person I've ever met, probably. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, Tom Hanks is the most loved. Well, I bet you Bill Paxton is number 2, if not more, in Hollywood. Everyone who ever met Bill Paxton loved him, and he was extremely generous, and I am indebted to him in ways that I can't tell you. Because when I came over for the Alien premiere, Bill let me stay in his apartment, and Bill was always so enthusiastic, and he was always so inclusive. Like he wasn't one of those actors who would, like, you know, he's like, oh, I got this audition, so I'm not going to tell you about it. Bill would always be like, hey, Mark, have you heard about this thing? Like he'd tell you. And I was like, Bill, thanks so much for that. And it even came down to a year or so after Aliens, because I had been hired in England, I never got any residual money off of Aliens, which is, that's a sore point. Because it probably cost me almost $1 million. But the day that they got their first residual check, Bill called me up, all excited. He was like, Mark, did you get the check? Did you get the check? And I was like, what check? He's like, Aliens, man, Aliens. I was like, Billy, you know, I don't get any of that, because I was hired British equity. Yes, I'll never. I had a buyout. He was like, oh, yeah. Okay, man. Well, all right. Well, I'll see you later. And I was like, no. You're not getting off. Don't get off the phone. I said, how much was it for? He goes, oh, man, I don't really want to say, you know. I said, Bill, either you tell me, or I'm driving down to Santa Monica and I'm going to knock on your door in about 20 minutes. He was like, that was like $200,000. I was like, oh, $200,000. And, you know, I needed the money at the time. So that was a sore point. But still, great opportunity. It got me to Hollywood. It got me, you know, in a good position to go pursue other things. And, you know, just being part of that movie. It's iconic. It is a classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, that's, and I mean, that makes my blood boil. I mean, you have to think, there has to be some sort of recourse for you to get residuals, you know, and again, for people that are watching that aren't real industry head, residuals you get, you know, as an actor when things air on TV, you know, in perpetuity forever. And they started like in the early 70s or late 60s. So, well, that's really a sad story. Let's start a GoFundMe. So let's start a GoFundMe for Mark so he can get his alien residuals.
Well, hey, it's like these days, you know, I could use one of those checks. It's like, no way, we're sitting here wondering how this is all going to get put back together. And just to share, if it's of interest to people, it's like, in addition to doing movie and TV, I've been doing a lot of voice work and game work. And I got a call from my voiceover agents to say that if I didn't build a home studio, I wasn't going to work. So I'll shift the camera over real quick. You can see I built myself
Wow.
a little studio booth
Yeah.
there, and I am working this week. I'm dubbing a Turkish television series into English, and if I hadn't built that, I wouldn't be working.
Hmm.
And it's amazing. So it's funny, as an actor, you kind of morph and develop into different phases. And for me, like, my focus right now is like I'm going to be starring in a big video game, which pays like a movie. It's amazing.
Hmm.
And our union finally negotiated a tiny residual, but I'll take a tiny of $1 billion any day. Because
Sure.
these games, and I hate to say it, these games are where the industry's going. Streaming. It's like I'm laying down another voice track for some characters on a streaming series, animated series. So in these times, like, how we're going to rush back into production, I don't know how that's going to play out. But the digital world is on fire.
Mhm.
It's on fire.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to take on another aspect of my craft, and I love voice work. I really do. I love it.
Hmm.
Because again, you have to create characters, and you have to go through the same process pretty much.
Hmm.
So yeah, just thought I'd share that as well.
I mean, you talked about the industry changing even before this virus, shut everything down for the last few months. And even before it was, everything is a $200 million, summer extravaganza, or it's a $2 million indie, and very little in between. Does a movie like Shawshank Redemption even get made today for whatever the budget was on that?
No. The budget was only like 20 million, but in fact, last year I was flown out to Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio, where we shot Shawshank, and it was a big deal. Darabont was there. Morgan didn't make it, but they had Ben Mankiewicz from TMC come, and he moderated, and like 30-some thousand people showed up.
Wow.
But I remember chatting with Frank Darabont, and he flat out said it. He said, it was trouble enough getting the money to make that movie in the first place. But he said, in today's world, never get made. Nobody's going to touch a period prison drama about the friendship between two guys.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. It's a shame because it's a classic, and truthfully, it hurts my heart because I know you talk with Brian too. It's like there's that disparity. There's the $200 million tent pole, and there's that little $1 or $2 million thing that I think it has been for the past couple of years. It's hard to come up with $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To find financiers for that. So there's a shift, and rather than like just be like wallowing in our own like pity party, I think we just have to adapt and like look at it and go, well, this is what is. This is what I'm looking at right now, and you got to make an adjustment. Because for me, although I could retire in a couple of years, I've always had it in my mind that I wanted to be just like the famous French playwright actor Molière. Molière died of a heart attack on stage in the middle of a play. I'm that guy too. I mean, I will do this some form until I'm in a box. It's what I love. It's what I do. I mean, I know that sounds a bit pompous, but
no, well, it is. I mean, it's a craft, and you've trained for it and made a great body of work. And two of the actors that we've mentioned, Gene Hackman and Jack Nicholson, just kind of rode off into the sunset. And I'm like, why aren't they still working? Neither one of them have done a movie in 10, 15 years, and it's just hard to believe.
Well, I think that's another shift because in the industry, it's skewed very, very, very young. And it's skewed away from true drama. It's a lot of DC comic stuff. And although I'm sure those guys could get paid millions of dollars to play, God on some movie, or, occasionally they have those octogenarian buddy movies that those guys get together and do. But
yeah,
I would imagine for someone like Hackman, though, I think he's such a real method actor that I bet he got tired of just like what they're writing, because I once heard that Hackman's thing was if somebody got in touch, or he had his agent say, if somebody contacted his agent and said, we want Gene Hackman, the rule was, okay, well, send him a script to this address and put a check in it for $1 million. If he cashes the check, he wants to do your movie. If he doesn't, go find somebody else. And I thought, wow, now that's cool, right?
Yeah.
You're powerful enough as an actor to go, look, I don't want a whole lot of talking. I don't want to, just let me read it. You'll know if I want to do it or not.
That's a great story. I'll do that same deal for $10. You send me a $10 check, and if I cash it, then I'm doing your project.
Yeah.
And as we start to wind down here, Mark, and again, thank you so much for your time. To me, television is now kind of the golden age. That's where if I want to settle in and watch something, I want to binge watch a TV show more so than watching a film, because I'm not a big fan of the comic book movie and the big summer blockbuster. I want to see good writing and good storytelling and good acting, and that's more to me on television now. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree completely. I mean, all the great movie writers are writing for cable, and cable TV. I mean, there's some fantastic stuff out there, and a great outlet for a lot of good drama and a lot of good acting. In the end, it's all down to dollars. The guys who run the corporations that own the studios, like they're in it for money, and they should be. But I think that, like, my manager, she has got a great quote on her phone, and it's like the quote is in Hollywood, nobody knows a thing, and it's true. Yeah. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Like, I didn't know that Shawshank would be what it was, or Aliens would be what it was. I knew they were great scripts, but I really had no idea. And in fact, when you think about the release of Shawshank, like, we got tremendous reviews, but we made no money in the box office. If DVD was not such a hot thing back then, we'd have been dead in the water. DVD saved and DVD made Shawshank what it is. So I imagine as we go forward into the future, like, the new thing now is streaming. Now, me as an actor, I'm not a big fan of streaming because the producers are using that to pay us no residual money.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah. So now we become jobbers, right? It's like, I'm just like a stiff. I'm a working stiff. I'm going to go off and do all the stuff that I do to prepare for a role, and I give it away. And that burns me. But again, when you look at it, it's where we are. It's what is. So for me, it'd be like a certain project has to have a real soul to it, and a real heart to it. It has to be. Writers are the key, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without the writers, all of the stuff that we do is nothing. And so there's still a lot of great writing going on, and you just hope that, like I say, getting older, that there will be parts, and I think there will be. In fact, I'm hoping the people that trained me in England. Mm-hmm. One of my mentors there, this guy John Blatchley, he had been a director of the Royal Shakespeare Company. He had been director of the English National Opera. He pulled me aside when I was 18 years old, and he always used to call me. He was very English. He called me Dear Heart. So he'd always go, Dear Heart, I need to talk to you and to say that you're very talented. You're going to do very well. But truth is, you probably won't do your best work until you're 60. I remember I was 18. I was like, what? What'd you just say? 60? He goes, no. You're going to work. You'll be fine. But you're going to do your best work when you're 60. And, I did the Clive Davis thing, the Whitney, when I was like 59 or so. So I'm 63 now. So I'm hoping John is a real prophetic person, because I still got a lot in me. I still got a lot I want to do. And I feel so lucky about that. It's like being able to do the thing you love is probably the most important. And that's in anything. One of the best key moments I had in my actor's training was this one teacher, Yat Malmgren. He said, well, first of all, he said, you have to be an actor, you have to do. It's every day. Observation, your body training, your voice training. It's every day. You can't not do it. But he also said, which is key, he said, you have to treat everything you do as a piece of art. So no matter what it is, like the way you make your cereal in the morning, believe it or not, can really be an artistic experience, depending on how you do it. And I know that sounds foolish, but it's true. And I've taken that to, no matter what I put my hands on, and Brian will attest, I treat it in a very detailed, like artful fashion. Now, it's done nothing for my golf game. Nothing. No, although actually I'm getting better. I'm getting better. So
yeah.
And I think Brian and I are gonna go out later this week for a late afternoon round of golf. Just he and I, when no one else is really around, and try and get back some bit of our normal life.
Yeah, and we're talking about our mutual friend Brian Krause, Charmed star Brian Krause, and he's always trying to get me to play golf. I'm not a golfer, and everyone I send out to play with him, he kicks their ass. They don't want to play with him anymore. So do me a favor and humble him a little bit, okay? See if you can take him back down.
I try, but Brian's a player, man. He's a player, and he's been. We did a movie together, and then found out we were both golfers, and he was so sweet. He invited me to his club, and Brian is a real stick, but he's a great guy to play with. Who the hell is that?
Some homeless guy looks like just stumbled his way into here.
Some truckers on the show. Damn.
I think he's connecting his audio. I just see some gray beard. Is that
yeah, big scruffy doodles. Look at him.
Welcome, Brian. Thanks for chiming in as we're winding down here with Mark.
Damn. You're gonna go drive your truck. You're gonna go drive your truck and drink a few beers.
Yeah, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna go.
Wow, Zoom
That's
really.
funny. I want to say hi, but man, there's so many things that I haven't heard the whole stories you talk about, Mark, and it's fascinating. I could listen to you talk about acting and how you go about it just for days. True inspiration, and I talked to Dale quite a bit about it. You're someone I look up to a ton for just your career and how you go about it. And like you said, everything's an art. Mark actually helped me make a Christmas present for my dad. He was having a yard sale not too long ago, and I was like, "Oh."
Was it a lemon tart? Was it a lemon tart?
No, it wasn't a lemon tart, but it was this cute this box that he had forever, and I had an idea, and he's like, Mark's like, no, we got to really. Mark puts a lot of care, not just into a project, but as you can see as an actor, it really comes through, Mark. And this has been an honor to watch you.
And while I have you two guys here,
Brian is one of maybe this many actors that I've been in touch with or stayed friends with. Because not only is it hard, like as an actor, because normally we're like vagabonds, we're going here and there and everywhere. But yeah, Brian and I made friends on this movie and been friends ever since. And yeah, we're golf fanatics.
Golf.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're giving me vertigo, Brian. Sit down.
I know. Sorry.
So I wanted
to say hi.
Since I have two of you guys here,
Do you
and
need
then
a razor, man? Brian, do you need a razor?
Listen, I haven't been able to grow hair on my face in ever.
It looks
finally
good.
It comes in gray, so it's, you know.
It looks good though. It looks good.
Yeah, you're too
It's
pretty
2
without
months.
a little facial hair. Hey, and
It's a shame they canceled Sons of Anarchy. You'd be right there.
Well, I have you two guys here. You guys are both advocates for the homeless in Los Angeles, and you had the project documentary you're working on, Michael and me. And do you guys want to talk about that at all, and maybe promote what you're doing and how that came about?
You know, sadly, it was a well-intentioned project, and Brian couldn't have done it without him. You know, we made a really valiant effort. We made a stab at it, man. And I was alluding to how difficult it is to raise money, and we didn't need a lot. We needed like $400,000, but it just proved next to impossible. And in reflection, you know, it's a true story. You know, just quickly, yeah, I'm sure you know the story, but you know, there was a homeless guy living out in the pathway out the back of my house. I had no idea he was there. My youngest child got a dog. It ended up being my dog. I'm walking back in this pathway. I've never been there before. And there's this guy camping out. And I'm like, what the? And initially I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. You can't live here. And he kind of looked at me and went, why not? I've been here 5 years. And I'm like, you've been living behind this wall, behind my house for 5 years? He was, yeah. I was gobsmacked. But anyway, over time, I became friends with this guy. I'm still friends with him. Like, I ran into him on the pathway the other day, and Mike, he was an interesting character. You know, he wasn't a drug addict. He wasn't a criminal. He was a beeraholic, sure. But at that time, this dude, you know, because we have like skewed perceptions of homeless people. This guy rode a bike 18 miles to Glendale and 18 miles back every day to do a job where his job was distributing food to homeless people. And here he was living in the dirt back here, in the dirt. So anyway, I wrote the script. I think I did a good job. Brian was directing. He did a great job. A friend of ours, Warren, helped to shoot and edit. But it's a tough road, man. It's tough. And I think, being truthful, if the story hadn't been about two aging white guys, we probably would have got money. Like if it had been me with a young Latina, that might have flown, right? Yeah. But these two old white guys, even though Michael, believe it or not, like never had an acting class in his life. If I showed you some of the footage we shot, he's a natural, man. Natural actor. And I was shocked. And even one day we were filming, we were doing stuff here in my garage, and he broke down crying, and Brian said cut, and I turned around to Brian, and Brian had tears coming out of his eyes because of Michael's performance.
Wow.
Right?
Absolutely. It was amazing because he was like, oh, acting's easy. I'm like, oh my God. So I just memorized the line and just talk, huh? I'm like, oh my God. Yes.
Well, thanks for sharing that story, Mark. I mean, I have heard bits and pieces of it from Brian, and that's amazing what you guys, tried to put together, and maybe someday you never know, it'll come to fruition. And I have this question I'll apply to both of you from Jeff Hatfield. Have you ever been starstruck meeting an idol or somebody that you wanted to work with? Have you been starstruck before working with somebody? We'll start with you. We'll start with you, Brian, and then we'll go to Mark.
Oh man, I definitely haven't worked with the caliber that Mark has, but probably I'll say Pam Anderson. It was right as she was getting married, Tommy Lee, and all in the papers and all that. And I was doing this movie. She was my love interest. And, meeting her was just like, I mean, who didn't watch Baywatch at the time? But, I've met a lot of other people. But I think that's one that kind of took my breath away for a minute. And it was like, wow, this is like, she was the most iconic pop star or whatever figure at the time. And it was kind of weird just realizing that she's, just a person.
Yeah.
Because, for the longest time, I didn't think she, did things that normal people did.
Well, she was more a celebrity than a talent. They just brought a lot of pop culture.
She's a movie star, Dale.
Okay, she's a movie star, a porn movie star.
Hey,
I don't know. I didn't say that.
Hey, she's a very talented girl. She's a very talented girl.
I stand corrected by the London
listen,
trade.
not everybody can
That's
run in slow motion.
Did you ever see what she did with Tommy Lee on that boat on that lake?
No. Why don't you describe it for us in detail?
The girl's got talent. I'll believe it there. She's got talent.
Okay. Mark, does anybody come to mind? I mean, obviously, you just have a laundry list of the biggest actors on the planet, and I put you in that category. Is there anybody that really got your attention or that really made you get your game, as tight as it can be?
Well, I'm always about that, but no.
Yeah.
No, mine was Jack Nicholson, and I'll tell you, like, I only met him. We were in Williamsburg, New York, in this little bar. We get ushered in, like I told you, in that hierarchy. So I'm already in the set with David O'Hara, who's a great Scottish actor and a hoot, and Ray Winstone comes in, and then Leo, and then Jack finally comes in. And Ray was kind of like being the master of the ceremony. So he was introducing people to Jack, and he comes to introduce me, and Ray's going, and this is, and Jack stopped, and he goes, Ray, I know who Mark is. I know who. And I went, whoa, Jack Nicholson knows me.
Yeah.
But then when I shook his hand, the dude has got mitts, man. Like, he's got big fucking, I mean, I've got reasonable sized hands. His was like, he put a catcher's mitt around my hand, and I was like, whoa.
Wow.
I thought this to myself when I was shaking hands with him. I was like, I would never want to have a street fight with this dude, because he could just go and fucking choke you to death with those things. And he's got legs that are just massive. He's built like a bull.
Wow.
But I wasn't scared, but I was really like, it's Jack Nicholson, So, and then when he complimented me, I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And then this is the weird thing. Let me tell you one little quick story. I almost told you when we were doing Departed. So let me tell you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So during the course of the whole movie, it was like I was on it for 6 months on and off, going back and forth between Boston and home and New York and home. And Nicholson fancies himself a writer. He was rewriting The Departed the whole time we're doing the movie. And my big death scene, which was really like a page and a half long, he kept rewriting it. And it went from this to this. And I was thinking, oh man, Scorsese must not like me. He must not like the work I'm doing. Something fucked up. They're killing the reason I did this part was this great death scene. And I got really depressed. And I was like toward the end of the shoot, and I was getting flown back to New York, and I'm flying on the plane. I was really down. I was going, man, this sucks. Like, this scene is nothing now. It's like not even worth my time. I was just really pissed off. Like, hit my hotel door. There's a package there, a big manila package that has permanent marker that says, "This is the scene, as per Marty." Triple underline Marty. I open up the sides, right? And he had restored the entire scene as written by Bill Monahan. And I was like, hallelujah. Oh my God. And so that made me like, I was so hyped up to do that scene. Oh man. but that was one of the weird things. Yeah, Jack was, and Jack used to say to me, he's a real friendly guy, but I'd come on set, this is before we actually shot it, he'd be like, hey, Mark, did you like that little rewrite I did for you on the scene there? And of course, you got to say, yeah, Jack, it was great. Really great. Anything but, but I finally learned what it was. I said to Monahan one night in the bar, I was like, Bill, what the fuck's up, man? Why do you keep rewriting the scene? It's like you're turning into nothing. He's like, that's not me. He goes, it's Jack. I said, why don't you all say something to him? He said, we can't. If you say something to him, you don't mollify him, he'll fucking walk the movie. And I was like, oh my God. And then to learn later that Marty was not a big fan of Jack.
Yeah. Well, if I'm not wrong, that was the last major project that Jack did, if I'm not mistaken. And in closing,
well, he did one of those octogenarian holiday films.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
I hear he's not well though too.
What's that?
I hear he's not well. I hear he may have like Alzheimer's or something.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, that explains him not working anymore. But and so in closing, and again, thank you guys for coming on, Brian. I appreciate you jumping on. And I had Brian on a few weeks ago. He was my first interview. And Brian, stop talking over the interviewer. So both you guys, when I had Brian on a few weeks ago, everybody's like, "Oh, I loved him in the Stephen King movie, whatever that was called. It's slipping my mind. The Blue Lagoon, Charmed, and the same for you, Mark. Everybody had some. Oh, I loved him in Shawshank. I loved him in Aliens. I loved him in The Departed. What do you guys get recognized most for when you're on the street? Hey, you're this guy from this. There's this guy from that. And we'll start with you, Brian. What do you get most when you're out and about?
In LA?
Everywhere.
Not so much, but Charmed seems to be the thing. Fives, sorry. No, all the way down at the end on the bottom. FedEx.
Oh.
He had no idea. I'm like, I'm Leo.
What about you, Mark? Is there anything that
it's Shawshank.
Shawshank. And is there anything I didn't really ask you about? That pivotal scene, the rape scene it's so huge in pop culture. Is there anything about that scene that you can tell people that are watching today, like how you prepared for it? How do you go about something like that? And did you know it was going to be such an iconic scene at the time?
I had a pretty good idea when I first read it. It was a hell of a scene. But the best part was that in preparing for that movie, which is key, when I think of it, we rehearsed for Aliens, we rehearsed for Shank, we rehearsed for Departed. We spent on Shawshank 3 entire weeks, the whole cast, taped off like we were doing theater, and rehearsing scenes and improvising. So, God bless Frank Darabont. He not only mentions me in his book, it's called the Final Script of Shawshank, and he kindly mentions like lines that are iconic that made it into the film that are mine, that I created in improv when we were rehearsing. Now, if we had never rehearsed, you wouldn't have lines like "Anybody get to you yet?"
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's just like that. Almost that entire scene, I improvised. But so actually coming to the rape scene, it was weird because we were all on set and ready to go. Tim was obviously uncomfortable about the scene, but I knew as an actor preparing for it, it wasn't about homosexuality. It was about power. It was about Bob's Diamond wielding power and leverage over this guy just because. I mean, because he was a psychopath, but just because. And in fact, rape is that. Rape is never about sex. It's about control. It's about being able to subjugate another human being, right? So I knew that going in. But the day we arrived, it was like Tim was, man, he was antsy. He was like, he was not comfortable around me at all. And like I walked onto the set that day and I saw him coming out of a makeup trailer and I went, oh, booty call. booty call, and he chased me around this set. He was gonna punch me. He was like, "You motherfucker!" He was gonna get me, and I was laughing my ass off, running away from him, and I thought it was all in jest. But when we got to the set, Tim, man, he was uncomfortable. He didn't want to do this scene, and there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of stuff that we don't have time to go into now. But it's a long story, and it doesn't put Tim in a great light. But the actual scene that's in the movie is not what was written. What was in the movie, what was written was, I would say, if you can imagine, 5 times more violent. Because when in the movie, the way I come around and we confront him, and we actually, the way it was written, we actually take him, bounced his head off the dryer just to shake him up. We then took a sock, stuffed it in his mouth, and then we took an iron pipe and put it between his teeth so he couldn't talk. All he could do was. So in fact, one of the things you lose, like in the course of making a movie, imagine this. I've described to you what it was written like. So when my character said to him, that's right, you scream. It's better that way. He wasn't even able to scream, so it made my character even more evil. Because he was going, and I'm telling you, yeah, that's it. You go ahead and scream. Better that way. It's awesome. But didn't make the movie. It's still, the scene still plays. The scene is still scary as hell. And the comment I've gotten most is like, when people are coming to see me to show or whatever, it's like, dude, you are the reason I never went to jail. Man, I saw that scene you did, and I never want to go to prison.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. I've had you an hour and a half, and it's been a great time, Mark. I'm so grateful. And Brian, thanks for. I think Brian's been abducted, but I'm going to wind this down. Thanks for joining us, and it's been a pleasure, Mark. And you're a class act and just a phenomenal actor, and I can't wait to see more of what you have to offer in the future. Everyone at home watching this, thank you so much, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Dale.
Okay.
See you now.
Bye.